Welcome to the Open Book live stream, episode 3. Tonight, Christine and I will be discussing SUDs. And I ain't talking about what you get when you're doing the dishes. Seemingly unimportant decisions in our marriage and in life in general. We're not licensed therapists, but we are certified life coaches through the American Association of Christian Counselors. We're told in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, to be of sober spirit, to be alert, for your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. So if we take that into context with a seemingly unimportant decision, we're not worried about we're not being of sober mind or sober spirit and being alert because we're not worried about the short or long-term consequences. I'm Bryan Hoss. This is my wife, Christine, and we're just hossing around. So what's a seemingly unimportant decision? That would be friending someone of the opposite sex on Facebook. I did that, and it nearly led to the destruction of my marriage. I knew a female prior to Christine and accepted that Facebook invitation, and it nearly cost me my marriage. And the only thing that saved us was really putting Christ at the center of our marriage and going to the doors that were open with the intensive that we went through.
And actually, the therapist at our intensive said something that has struck with me for the last 4 years, and actually, I think it was the first thing that she said was, the problem with your marriage isn't you. The problem with your marriage isn't your spouse. The problem with your marriage is the enemy. And again, that goes right back to this Bible verse. Your adversary, the enemy, is prowling and seeking someone to devour.
Yeah, and not just even devour just the individual. He really, really wants to destroy marriage because marriage is the model of Christ and the church, right? So if we're really thinking about that, right? If we're saying that we're making seemingly unimportant decisions and we're applying this Bible verse to that we're cutting God out of the picture. Like it's because man, I'm kind of at a loss for words for that of how important we make these decisions that we think we're all good and instead of having Christ at the center of our marriage, we have ourselves at the center of our marriage, making seemingly unimportant decisions, and instead of being in prayer and assuming God's protection, we get in the car. It's a seemingly unimportant decision to drive down to the grocery store, and we're assuming that we have God's protection, and we haven't prayed about it. We haven't done anything. We've just said, "Oh, I'm getting a car. I'm going to the grocery store."
It's a fine line because God's not a wizard. He's not there to make everything better when we hey God, will you fix this? Hey God, will you fix that? But at the same time, it's like you said, the assuming God's protection on our lives, it's a big assumption.
Yeah.
And we should always be in communication with God, but where do you find that balance? Regardless, I don't think we're kind of going
on my ADD buddy trail. Love it. So
I don't know that it's an ADD. It's just it becomes a larger topic than something that we could cover in what.
Yeah, and so and the basic thing is that with seemingly unimportant decisions, God needs to be at the center of our marriage, which means we're seeking His wisdom first, right? And if we're doing that, seeking His wisdom first, and how God can, for us, how God is taking that, taking what I intended for evil, right? For evil purpose, selfish purposes, God has really worked all things to our good. And I mean that by in that our marriage is better after the infidelity that I through that seemingly unimportant decision of clicking and accepting that friendship. Mm-hmm. And then from there, the text, the phone calls, the emotional affair first, right? Because that's what happens, the emotional affair. And through that, I honestly believe that it brought to light my sexual addiction, my porn addiction. And had that not happened, I'm not saying that I wish that would happen again, because that was obviously serious pain that you went through, serious pain that I went through, and especially after going to Celebrate Recovery, and really, that seemingly unimportant decision set a whole bunch of things in motion for both of us.
Right. And you kind of clarified this, so I want to make sure that it's very clear that we're not saying, go out and do all these awful things so that your marriage will be better, but they kind of serve as a catalyst.
Yeah.
So, once everything sort of, I don't know, I think it's kind of a bit of a cliche, but cliches are cliches because they're often true, is that you have to hit rock bottom before you start climbing out. And that's, you hear that a lot in recovery groups and that sort of thing. So people hit rock bottom. Our marriage hit rock bottom.
Seriously, rock bottom.
And it was through the recovery process, and it didn't just, put us back where we were before you hit that wall, before we hit rock bottom. The recovery took us back and sort of, I have a great analogy for you. So we've been having some massive technical difficulties today trying to get everything going. And I'm at this point not even sure that we're actually running live. It looks like we are, sort of. So,
but here's our seemingly unimportant decision to start at, we get back.
Well, no, we tested. That's the thing, is that we tested everything yesterday and it all worked. But anyway, it's, you have that little thing that's not quite working, and it steamrolls and you don't want to roll back to like a really crappy version. It works, but it's, we're still together, or it works and we're still online and we're still streaming. But if the audio is cutting out, if the video is cutting out, do you really want that? I'm trying to get back to my own analogy. And if you're looking for that in a marriage, you don't want to go back to the crappy stuff.
Right.
You want to go back and completely reset.
Yeah, I mean, really, we blew it up. I mean, we really blew it up. I mean, blew up the foundation for us after that, right? The common goal. So God took what I took intended for evil for my own self pleasure. I mean, he really blessed me with the healing of knowing that sex is not love, knowing that love is a choice, and it's not about, it's funny that we, SUDs in the analogy of it's not what you get from doing the dishes. That was like a major thing for us. It's a seemingly unimportant thing, but you can seemingly unimportant things, if you don't understand the consequences of those decisions, those seemingly unimportant decisions, they start out small and then they go, they start big. I mean,
well, go back. Let's instead of, looking forward from when that decision is, go back and look at what happened previous. So, we have coming up on, the exact math is eluding me right now.
4 years.
Well, I know it's 4 years, but it's, it's like 3 years and so many months, and trying to do all that it's not working in my head at the moment.
Right.
But
Right.
The chronology is, going backwards, is that, you left. Before that, you had agreed to stay away from your affair partner.
Yeah.
And, you, part of that was, other connections. So we are currently in Texas. We moved here from California. Your affair partner was in California. You had an employer in California.
Right.
And you not only resumed relationships with your affair partner, but you resumed relationships with other connections in California.
Oh, other sexual and porn addicts.
Well,
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But,
just going right back
that,
into that.
They were things that tied you into California.
Yeah.
So, you started a work relationship back up with somebody.
Yeah.
Nothing sexual in that. It was a tie.
Yeah.
As in, a not not two people racing.
Yeah, right.
I'm not doing well tonight. So you
It
started that
happens.
relationship with, resumed that work relationship, which opened another door for you going back into California. Beyond that, you had gotten to the, going back further,
Yeah.
you had gone back to California for a trip. And I don't even want to get into the minutia of that, but in that trip, you connected with your affair partner before it was an affair, or before it was a physical affair. It was
Right.
definitely an emotional one, and you reconnected with your former employer.
Right.
Before that, you had gone into an emotional affair with this woman,
Right.
and you were doing good things. You were having a friendship with somebody. You were praying with her.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah, but it
doing
was
all
all
these things.
selfish, though.
I get that, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to whitewash it. I'm just saying, there's all these
Well,
tiny little details that on their own aren't
they're seemingly unimportant.
they're no
Yeah,
big
they're
deal.
seemingly unimportant decisions. I'm going to
But
pray
it's
with
like
this woman.
it's like that snowball.
Yeah.
That
It
turns
starts out
into
a
an
little
avalanche.
small, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and next thing you know, you're like you said, before I knew that I was caught in the emotional affair, it was over and done with, right? I mean, one foot was already out the door because of the emotional affair. And they always start small, right? Like, I mean, one for us is not doing, like we discussed this last night, is not doing the order of daily prayer. How that changes our day. That seemingly unimportant decision not to get up, when we get up in the morning and we have breakfast and we don't do the seemingly unimportant, that order of daily prayer changes a lot of times it changes the outcome of the day.
We didn't do that this morning.
No, and look at the outcome of the day. It has been completely hectic.
And to expand on what that actually is.
Yeah, if you're a Lutheran, you already know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how it applies to us.
Yes.
So, what was it? Easter.
Yeah.
We had kind of a big event in our church, and we're doing a fundraiser in our church to
the stained glass.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, was it Easter or was it Christmas? It was Christmas.
Yeah.
It wasn't Easter, it was Christmas. Easter is just sticking in my head because we missed Easter because we were quarantined. But
and we're not talking about that. No bunny trails.
Yeah, no. Sorry. At Christmas, our church did a fundraiser started a fundraiser to restore our stained glass windows, which are incredible and are
beautiful,
degrading.
Oh, yeah.
So they need some work, and it's not a cheap process. So one of the things that they did was they tied a picture of one of our Christmas windows and made it into a puzzle.
Yeah.
And then tied that puzzle to an advent calendar. And we don't have any, little kids at home, and that's usually, who you do with the advent calendar.
Right.
But we were just like, I don't know, let's do it.
So we did it. Yeah.
And part of it was doing essentially a daily prayer from the prayer book.
Right. A seemingly unimportant decision to do that. And I mean, just saying, to clarify that, it was a seemingly, don't switch, it was a seemingly unimportant decision. We're like, hey, let's do that. And realizing the consequence, and I should have clarified that earlier about good and bad, because you have good and bad consequences from your seemingly unimportant decisions.
Fair enough. I hadn't really thought to apply it that way, but it's a good comparison. But so what we did is we started every day doing part of that little puzzle advent calendar.
Right. And that was fun.
Doing our prayer book.
Right.
And then after Christmas, we kind of sat there and went,
what's next?
That was really cool.
Right. What's next?
Let's do this some more. And then we started to incorporate the prayer book.
Yeah, download it on the phones.
Downloaded an app, because you got to have an app for everything. I have an app for this program. And that's why I keep looking down, because I'm covering, switching cameras with an app. And so let me switch back. So we have an app for the prayer, and we do that theoretically every day. But like you're saying, a seemingly unimportant decision is when we decide not to. We decide that today we're too busy.
Yeah.
Today we have too much going on. Today I just don't feel like it.
Yeah, and I think that ties into looking forward looking forward to the cross and looking backwards at the commandments. I mean, we have that backwards when we should really be looking forward to the commandments.
And you need to expand on that.
And looking back at the cross. And this is really not ours. I mean, again, we have a rock star of our pastor, Bryan Wolfmueller, who we love dearly, and he is just, I mean, he brought that up, in Bible study about how the Satan wants us, and those seemingly unimportant decisions, he's telling us, look forward because you're not going to be condemned for that, and then totally turns around and condemns us for that, right? So we're looking forward at what Christ did on the cross, and then we're being, then you're being convicted by that seemingly unimportant decision because of, because you're not looking at the commandments. To not saying you can be righteous, but that I'm trying my best to put God at the front of my life, in the front of my marriage. So if I'm doing that, I'm being compassionate, I'm being I'm being mindful of my wife, being the spirit, being the head of the house,
spiritual leader.
Spiritual leader. Good Lord, that took forever to get out. The spiritual leader of the head of the household, and really just making decisions based on God's word and not what feels good of the day. Right? I mean, because that's a seemingly unimportant decision, and not worrying about the consequences, whether they're good or bad.
Absolutely. I had a thought. Oh, and something else that you brought up in our thing when we were talking about this off the recording is that it's not just little things, it's what it actually leads to. So it leads to, self-justification.
Yeah.
It leads to complacency. Obviously, we kind of touched on both of those, but also the lukewarm.
Yeah.
And you know what happens?
Spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because you're not, I mean, you think about that. You're neither not hot nor cold, right? You're just lukewarm. And you're just, I mean, really, you're just going through the paces, right? I mean, I mean, in all intents and purposes, you're just being a Christian zombie. I mean, you're not even, I mean, and think about this. And I know that, and I'm really pointing the finger at myself about, you get in the car and we only pray when we're taking long trips. We only pray together if we really think about it, instead of going, wow, you know what? I got up today. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, help me and seek wisdom. And then realizing at the end of the day how much he's blessed me and protect me, it really, with everything that's going on in the last 4 days. I mean, everybody knows, the U.S. is burnt. They're trying to burn it down with the rioting and stuff going on. And it's just, those kids don't understand that seemingly unimportant decision to go out there and riot. It could be loss of life. Seemingly unimportant decisions, right? And you're right. It starts out small, and next thing you know, man, you're like, it's like that frog in the frying pan, right? You're just sitting there, and you can just turn up the heat until he won't jump out until he's dead. And you just keep stacking.
He's not jumping out.
Well, yeah, I get that, right? Well, I mean, just think about it. You're stacking up those seemingly unimportant decisions with bad consequences, right? And you're probably throwing one in there that's good, but the overall, if we're not seeking Christ in our life in the center of our marriage, and we're not doing that, right? We're not doing.
And go dial it back a little bit, because we're talking about how seemingly unimportant decision, those SUDs, how they expand out in the rest of our life, but how do they react in our marriage?
Right. Yeah.
That seemingly unimportant decision of us not praying together this morning.
Yeah.
We start to draw apart. We
feel disconnected. Yeah.
Get disconnected. We start to get complacent with each other. I assume that you're doing your things. You assume that I'm doing my things.
Yeah, right.
And then when they're not there, when they're not happening, when they're not getting done, then
resentment.
You get the resentment. It steamrolls. It does all these things, and it leads to complacency in your marriage, being lukewarm in your marriage.
Yeah.
It leads to self-justification, and as soon as you do that one thing or make that one choice, it's a little bit easier to do it the same thing next time. And it's a little bit easier to do it next time. And it's a lot easier to do it the next time. And it snowballs.
Yeah. And it's like, oh man, and Pastor Wolf Mueller can't get credit for this because I think it was Eric Bells, my pastor in Kingsburg, California, that says that you just keep getting a little closer to the edge of that sin line. How much closer can I get without going over the edge? Keep getting closer and closer and closer. And then next thing you know, the ground gives away because you've stepped too far and now you're falling. Right? You've gone so far into seemingly unimportant decisions that you're having an emotional affair. And then you realize, you start looking, then what I believe about my wife is, what I want to believe about her is what I see. I find evidence in that, in every single seemingly unimportant decision just is based off of that, right?
It's like Billy Graham in an elevator.
Yeah. And that always, like, that story just resonates with me, that Billy Graham would not, like, it's a seemingly unimportant decision not to get in be seen in an elevator with a woman that was not his wife. Went to the grave with that. And that, I mean, I strive to be
by himself.
By himself, right. Him and another woman that was not his wife. He would never get in an elevator, would never be put himself in a compromising position that someone would allow to say that he was having an affair, that he was having an inappropriate relationship with another woman that wasn't his wife. And all men, we should esteem to be like that, but we don't. We make seemingly unimportant decisions, and at the compromise of our spouse. We really do. I mean, I know I did. I mean, I did for years, and now it's really, it comes at the forefront of my mind of not making those seemingly unimportant decisions, especially with the opposite sex, and realizing that it doesn't take but one of those decisions to get that ball rolling, to give Satan a window to step, for him to pull me through, right? Mm-hmm. To say, oh, remember that? That was easy. Let's do that again. Oh, that was good. That felt good. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. And next thing you know, you're caught up in the emotion, because it always starts with, for the woman, it's never about the sexual intercourse. It's about the emotional connectiveness, right? So they start the emotional affair, and then for the guy, he's playing along to get to that point, right? He's going to just play the game till he gets to what he wants, which is the physical intimacy, not the emotional intimacy. And all of those start with the seemingly unimportant decision, the SUDs, not when I'm doing the dishes. Right? I mean, so that, and really, if you just, running, just, reiterating some of the Bible verses that, like, you think about that, the seemingly unimportant decisions, right?
It's be sober of spirit, be on the alert.
Yeah.
Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour.
Yeah.
Because that's
his job.
That's what he does. Well, yeah. And it's, it's not this is not the only Bible verse that says it. It's just the one that, we kind of pulled up. But I mean, you have that same imagery in Job. I mean, God says to the devil, look at my servant Job. And yeah, the devil, what is the devil's job when he is? Well,
and it's funny, it's like the devil's going to and fro, and he's like, hey man, check out my servant Job. And basically drops a house on, takes everything from Job.
Right. But the point is.
Yeah, the point is, so we're bunny trailing it.
The point is that in that image, he is our adversary. He is the accuser. He is there to accuse. And I have a very dear friend who said something that was really profound to me, is that when the devil's whispering to you, he's whispering in your voice.
Oh, yeah.
So you hear, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's watching this. So I'll just give a shout out to Sharon Tuck for that little wonderful bit of wisdom.
Sharon.
And it just pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes. And I loved the
analogy. Yeah, Eric. Pastor. Yeah, give Eric Bells that credit. And I'm almost 100% positive that he was the one who brought that up in our men's small group that we were in Bible study, and talked about that, about stepping up to the line. Mm-hmm. I just and it's crazy how seemingly unimportant decisions can break the connectedness that you have. Like, you can. If you take our marriage and how hard we've worked the last 4 years, it wouldn't take but a month's worth of seemingly unimportant decisions.
A month?
Or a day. I mean, really, to burn it down, I would give it 30 days of seemingly unimportant, selfish decisions, and it would, to everything that we worked hard for, would be done. I mean, I'm just saying on both of us, we both did, 30 days. Not that I want, not that I'm not advocating to try that.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, no, and I mean that would, yeah, I don't have the desire to, because it. I mean, even when we have the seeming like today, you have that where you feel a little bit disconnected. Man, it hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're on the same page and you're both seeking the same thing, which is Christ first, right? Running that good race. So at the end of the day, like we heard um, you know, uh, in the Conquered series, right, is the other work that I've done in regards to sexual addiction and pornography, Dr. Ted Roberts, and the question in that, which was profound and still, I mean, wakes up every day, and it's a seemingly unimportant decision to say, is your wife better off today than she was the day you married her? I mean, just imagine it. You said, imagine if God asked you that. Is your wife better off today than she was the day she married you? And all of those seemingly unimportant decisions that last through that.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Just it's food for thought. It really is. Those seemingly unimportant decisions.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I'm gonna hossify this for you real quick. And remember, it's like this. And I'm stealing that from my buddy Troy Prehar. I'm gonna give him some props that and he called hossifying it, right? It's really is being of sober spirit, being on the alert, and realizing that the devil wants to destroy your marriage. It's not your wife, it's not your husband, it's the devil. The devil hates marriage. Just look at society itself. I mean, Christians we're no better off than them. And why is that? Because we're trying to live in this world and be of this world when we're instructed not to be. And we're making those seemingly unimportant decisions, which leads us up for failure in our marriages. And I just pray that you would take that to heart about 1 Peter 5:8 and really being alert in regards to your marriage and in your walk with Christ. And we also would hope that you would leave us a comment down there, or maybe a subject you'd like us to discuss in our, the adventures that we've had in these last 12 years being married. And we'd just love to hear from you guys, and just pray that you have a great night. And thank you so much for your time. See ya.